Welcome back to Beyond the Sign. This is part two with our conversation with Glenn Michaels. If you have not listened to part one, pause, go back and do that first. In part one, we broke down what the all in one loan is, how it works, and who it's designed for. Today, we're not talking as much of theory. Glenn is actually going to show us his screen and walk us through the simulator so you can actually see the math, real numbers, real scenarios. Glenn, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you very much. This is exciting for me because this is where the nuts and bolts actually finally get down to what everybody really wants to see. And everybody's scenario, like we talked about in the first podcast, is so different. And so the goal for me today is, and hopefully for you guys as well, is number one, to answer any questions that do come up from this. And what I would like to do is kind of guide you through, like if you were a consumer yourself and you were looking to do this. So if you watched, like I have a video I have everybody watch to start off, and watching that podcast really gets you interested first. That's probably a great thing to start with. The first podcast we did. Then they get into the viewing of the video, how it works with all of the scenarios and what actually happens with the loan. That gives you a really good overview of the mechanics behind it. So I want to actually go in today and break it down like if you were going in the first time and entering your information without my help. Okay? Which I think will help because a lot of people want to know right away. They don't even want to wait to talk to me. They're so excited.
So, Glenn, real quick, for someone just jumping in 60 seconds or less, what is the all-in-one loan, and who is it for?
Okay, perfect. I call it the home equity line of credit on steroids. Why is it on steroids? Because it actually is a first position mortgage and is different than anything else in the country because it pays principal first versus interest first, which is all 30-year amortized, 15-year, 20-year loans. Okay. Now imagine you had your checking account, your savings, your bill pay, your direct deposit, your AC, everything in your mortgage. So as it's depositing money in, say as an example, you had 100,000 and you had 10,000 in income, it drives it down to 90. And every day it sweeps at midnight, sweeps how much interest you would pay just on that 90, not 100. And so what it's doing, it's driving it down all the time. Then you wait to pay your budget. And when you pay your budget, guess what? Then it goes back up. But every time there's additional monies left over. So this isn't for everybody, as Martin said before. It is for a lot of people if you've got good to great income. Okay. So that's the basis. Now we'll get into the nuts and bolts a little bit more.
Well, let's pull up the simulator and role play some real world scenarios. Martin, I want you to play the customer here as Glenn walks us through this one.
All right. If you were to go into the link for the all-in-one loan, if you'll just look at the top here, there's the link it sent you to, allinone.com. It's going to take you to this front page, which has all kinds of things on the top. What we want to do is get down past the testimonies and into the actual simulator itself. Okay. So we're going to act as though you're a brand new person. You're just getting this set up. And typically I can do a purchase on this for investment properties, for second home and primary. But just to start this, we're going to start a new simulator and you hit go. First thing you're going to do is, what is it? Is it a purchase, a refi? Cash out, by the way, this is a great thing for cash out. A normal loan like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're going to charge you quite a lot of money. They're called points, a cost of doing business. They're going to charge you 3/4 of a point. Every 1 point is 1% of the loan amount. So at 3/4, if it was a $100,000 loan, that's $750, right? At $1 million, that's a lot more, $7,500 just to do a cash out. With this, there's actually no charge, which is incredible for cash out. Okay. If it was a purchase and I was pulling a purchase here as an example, we can do a 20% loan, so 100,000. And rates today, a normal rate like today with 0 points, we're talking like 6.5%. Okay. If it was a refinance and they were at 6.5, and I would go, okay, let's imagine that 6 months from now we're at like 5.5%. Okay. So I would put in a rate of what we would be comparing it to. But in this scenario, we can do a purchase. Okay. So that a purchase, what's different though about this scenario is the loan hasn't been established. In other words, right here, we can't put, you've had this for 5 months because it's a purchase, right? It has to be zero. So the algorithms built into this software automatically take this 800,000 and 6.5. This is the principal and interest right there. That's the loan amount. Okay. Now, if somebody did want to put extra money down, like I've had lots of clients where they go, you know what? We want to do a 30-year loan and we typically want to pay an extra $200 a month. And I think Martin, the last time we spoke on a podcast, he said, well, what if he just paid one extra payment a year? It drops it down to around 22, 23 years on the payoff. Okay. So sometimes people will go, well, let's figure that out. What if I did make an extra payment? And that's where they would put in, like, say, $25 right there to match one payment a year to drop it down to 23. You could do that. So this is where you get to play around with that. And whatever it does, the algorithms figure it on to move it into the next piece. So now we go into deposits. So that was just one segment on the setup. Here's segment number 2. And this segment is going to be on deposits. So in this section, what are deposits? Now, normally when you get paid, like say most people are paid either twice a month on the 15th and the end of the month, or they're paid biweekly. That's most common. If you own a 1099 business, you're self-employed, you're the only person running the business, or you have multiples employees, then obviously in most cases you get paid once per month, and they'll have like a portion of W-2, and then the rest will be profit sharing that they get per month or at the end of the year. So those are going to come in later. We'll come back and share how to change those up. But for now, let's imagine you had, let's just say, $18,000 a month. But we're talking about $1 million house. That person makes good to great income. And that's what really is a requirement for this type of loan, is that you have good to great income. So it's not for everybody who's living paycheck to paycheck, right? So in this scenario, we're not talking about gross. So what is gross? Gross is before they take out your federal and state taxes, your Social Security and all the Medicare, all that stuff. Okay, we're talking net. So in this number right here under deposits, I want to put the net amount. So imagine someone was netting, this would, for someone like this, it would be pretty common to get about 10 grand every paycheck. And so now we go in, and most common is bi-weekly or bi-monthly. Let's actually make it semi, so it's paid twice per month. Now, what would you put on deposits? Often I have people go, we have an emergency fund and it's sitting in a savings account. Well, how much do you have? We have $50,000. It's very common to hear that. What's it earning right now? 0.5%, 1%. Sometimes people go, I found a place where I'm making 3.5%. It used to be 5%, but it's 3.5 now. Okay, well, what if we could beat that? Okay. And we'll get into that a little later as well. So let's just say someone had an extra 50 grand. Just like any mortgage, it usually takes about a month before they set it up and you start getting your statements. Okay. This is no different, except it takes a little longer, about a month and a half to 2 months to set it up, because why? All the mechanics going into this, your checking, your savings, your bill pay, your direct deposit, all that is going into this. All right. So when that happens, that's why it says month 2 there. Why do you want to put month 2? Because that's when this thing is set up. That's when you will deposit that $50,000. Why? Because it's dropping the amount of principal instantly. Okay, so now we hit next. This takes us into the next segment of spending. So what it is already figured out is you are getting paid twice a month, and that's $20,000 a month. That's what you see for the average monthly deposits. On the right here, this is still comparing that other loan. Okay, that's the principal and interest payment. Now, keep in mind, the lender, which is the only lender in the country selling this loan, is actually in California. So their taxes compared to Arizona or several other places are a lot higher than most. So this is where I will have the client figure out what are your property taxes for your home per month. For something like this in this price range around $1 million in Arizona, I would guess that property tax is probably around, say, let's say 400 a month. Okay, so we have 400, but we also have a homeowners insurance. And for that homeowners insurance, let's add another 200. So we're going to change this to 600. Now, on the average monthly expense, this is the amount of money, the 20,000 minus your mortgage. That's what's left, and minus the 600. So you see the little toggle switches where you can go up and down. It's changing the monthly leftover. That's really what drives this loan. So when you're comparing this, and I've done this comparison with 15-year loans where people are like, that payment on a 15-year is pretty high, because when you go from a 30 to a 15-year on an amortized loan, the payment jumps up drastically. With this, your payment doesn't change. But the extra money that you have left over that would normally go into a 30 or a 15-year loan is actually going to drive your principal down. And you have access to it at any time. That's what makes this loan amazing. As you're driving equity into this, you're going to have access to it. You can write a check. You can use your ATM card. You go traveling, go on a vacation. Guess what? Use your ATM. It's going to come right out of this, just like your normal lifestyle. You don't change your lifestyle. So let's click this. What we're doing is we're going to create a normal budget for someone who has this type of scenario. And I can tell you that's really close to 8,000 very commonly. Um, and that's above the mortgage payment. So to be honest, that's a pretty high budget considering the mortgage is on top of that. Because if you added those together, that's really $13,000, right? In annual or monthly budget. That's a big number. So in reality, that's a pretty big one, but I want to stick with that. That's a pretty big budget. People could tighten that down probably to around 6,000 if you had a family. That's food and insurance, maintenance on your vehicle, everything. So everything is built into your budget. So that's one of the things you're going to have to know is, what is my budget? Look at this. It left $6,200 left over. Now, this is where it gets exciting. This is where we create the results. In comparison with that 30-year fixed at 6.5%, look at this. It's paying off in 7.3 years. What's the difference? It's this number right here. Okay, that's the amount of interest on the all-in-one loan versus how much interest you paid over here at over $1 million. So how much did that save you? Right here. Saved you $785,000 in interest over a amortized loan. So here's the big question. Everybody's used to a 30-year loan. Before I met Martin, and who introduced me to Landon, this is all you guys knew, correct? Right? Nothing changed. But this changes the outlook of everybody's lives. This builds an inheritance. Why? That's what I want to get into. So before I move further and get into all the details of all these, if you see, we've got rate and assumption, wealth accumulation, summary, table, graph, chart. Before we get into these 6 tabs over here, I want to see if there's any questions before we move further, because if you notice what just happened, you have this whole loan paid off in 88 months versus 360. That's a 30-year loan. Most people, when they do a loan, they don't even consider going, am I ever really going to pay this off? 30 years is a long time from now. Here's what's amazing about this loan. Once you do this loan, I literally won't be calling you. You won't be calling me, besides to tell me how excited you are that this loan is getting paid down. But you won't be calling me to refinance your loan. You just won't. Why? Because you'll never have to do it again. Normally, if you need cash, you've got to refinance to pull cash out. If you're putting money into a normal 30-year loan, right? It's amortizing. And as it's amortizing, it is paying some principal down, but it's not paying much, very little. As a matter of fact, everybody hates to see their statements. On this, you're going to get excited because every one of these months, you're going to see the statement and it's driving it down.
That's fascinating. Glenn, thank you. That's great. You know, I know you and I've spoke about this several times, and I've brought this up in conversations with investors and money people and bankers and traditional mortgage loan officers. Everyone's always intrigued. You know, I'm inclined to know more about that. I'm intrigued by this situation. So the all-in-one loan simulator pretty much will tell you everything I think that you need to know. But I guess the question I would have just off of the fly for some of our listeners, a lot of our listeners and our customers are the salt of the earth type of people, the Dave Ramseys, you know. So, you
Love
know,
that.
there you go. So, if you were to just speak to them without using the simulator and just say, you know, the a 30-second or a 1-minute commercial on why this makes more sense to the salt of the earth traditional go to work, pay your bills, what's left over, put it into the S&P 500 or whatever they have to do with their outside investment portfolio. Uh, Personally, I think this makes sense to me from a numbers standpoint, but speak to those people real quick if you don't mind.
So, right off the bat, if you are a Dave Ramsey type person and you believe in a budget, which that's me totally, okay, you could be taking your extra, say, $500,000, $2,000 a month and putting it into an investment that goes into the marketplace, right? And so now, what are you risking? The market going up and down. Is there any guarantee in that? Absolutely not. This is a 100% guarantee on your money. As you heard in the first podcast we did, I call it reverse investing. And what does that mean? So let's just say you had a $500,000 loan, okay, and you're putting extra money into this loan, right? And your rate, let's just say, was at 7.5% on this. One of the things with Dave Ramsey and anybody is look at interest rates, right? Well, this loan is not driven by interest rate. It's driven by what additional money you have to drive it down and drive it down faster, which cuts out years, as you can see, of interest. So what you want to do is put it into this. If you're not paying on the rate, right, of 7.5% as an example, you're guaranteed that money back in your pocket. What does that mean? So let's just say you had 10,000 and you're at 500,000 and you put 10,000 down. Now you're at 490. Are you going to pay 7.5% on that 10,000? The answer is no, you're not. So versus if you gave it to an advisor who took it, can he guarantee you 7.5%? He can't. Okay, this will guarantee that you're not paying 7.5%. So I call it, it's my own terminology, reverse investing. Because as you're driving that principal down, you're not paying that 7.5%. Guaranteed. Whatever the rate is on this, and it's fluctuating with the market, which we'll get into that in a little bit. Did that answer your statement there, Martin?
It did. Thank you very much for speaking on that. It's just one of those things where, you know, the psychology behind what we know and what we don't know when it comes to traditional financing, it really does open up a whole broad of questions. And we certainly can't cover all of them today. And you're doing a great job, by the way. Thank you very much. And I think if everybody could just play with this simulator, just play with it, have fun with it. That's your job to explain that to the customers and to our audience. But I think it's kind of neat. I really do. So thank you for that illustration.
Yeah. And here's the thing. What Martin just said is so important, people, and that is normally what I like to do is I prefer when I give out the video that you watch that video that gets into all the graphs, how the loan works, how the sweep account that I mentioned briefly gets into all of that. So I require people to watch that first, and then it does say you can go into the all-in-one. I prefer you come on to it the first time with me. Now, because of this podcast, you're going to get to see some things and learn. As long as you watch these videos, this podcast over and over, then you're going to start getting a feel for how to do it on your own. Okay, which will help for sure. But you just need to realize you've been caught like every one of us. Our parents taught us, their parents taught them, right? That we do traditional loans 30-year. Who wins in those scenarios? The bank. This becomes a bank of you.
This was a really good example of a W-2 earner with a steady income. So I want to go to someone who already owns a home. They have some equity, they've locked into a low rate, maybe they have cash sitting idle. Show us how the refinance into the all-in-one loan looks like, and when does it make sense and when does it not?
Maybe I can add to that. Let's just take a Phoenix median household or housing. The median home is what, about 500 grand in Maricopa County. Maybe use that. And I believe there, you may even know this stat, Glenn, but I believe 40% of the nation has at least 50% of equity. That's one of the reasons why we certainly have a supply situation here in the Phoenix area. We have a higher supply than demand right now, and that happens a lot in large metro areas. But just talking to people across the nation where the average days on the market is 3 and 5 and 5 days or 2 weeks, where that's one of the reasons why they're locked in, right? They don't want to sell their house because they're sitting on that 3% interest rate that they got back in 2021 or 2022, but they also want to buy another house, but they are married to that rate. I think that should be a segment right there.
All right. So this is a scenario for the example of what Martin suggested, and that is there are tons and tons of people out there who have an estimated value home of like 500 to 600, 700,000 range, and their balance, because this was done 5, 6 years ago. They were refinancing when, they bought a house for say 350, but now they have so much equity that's just accumulated. So now they've got, say, a loan balance of 275,000. They've got a 30-year fixed loan, and it's at 2.75% rate. Look at that rate. Who wants to get rid of that, right? Nobody. Well, I actually had this scenario come up a year ago with a buddy of mine. He called me and he goes, Glenn, I keep hearing about this all-in-one loan you keep talking about, and I know you tried to talk me into this several years ago, but I couldn't pass up on the 2.75. It just made sense, and he never looked at it to compare it. And I'm like, okay. So this is a scenario that's very common out there. And we're not using his scenario, but a common scenario like his or lots of other people. So here's the monthly payment. It's only $1,268 a month at 2.75. Okay. That's smoking good. Who wants that? I do, right? I think most people do. Now, why would you give that up? That's what we're going to show you. So imagine this person was bringing in biweekly a household, so a husband and wife, and they had 5,000 net coming in biweekly, which is pretty common out there. So that's $130,000 combined income, husband and wife. All right. We're not even going to put in an extra deposit. Actually, you know what? These people are going to have excess money, just like my buddy did. He put in 100 grand. But kind of, once again, let's put that they have 50, because this kind of is the Dave Ramsey. They're going to have money just in case, right? Right, Martin?
Yep, they have that. They always have that reserve fund, as Dave would always call it. Have your reserve fund, your emergency fund, which is typically 6 months of living expenses.
Yep. Okay. So this would fit that perfect scenario. And if they had 10 grand coming in every month, a husband and wife, which is pretty common, and their payment was, as you saw, just over $1,200, very low, they're going to have extra money. So that's how they do accumulate and put into a savings account on the side, plus probably doing a 401k and other stuff we don't want to touch. All right. So now we're going to move this into comparing the two. A $1,268, we got to get the tax and insurance. That's probably going to be around $350 for homeowners insurance and property taxes in that 500,000 range. Does that sound about right, Martin?
That sounds perfect. Yes, that's exactly our customer base. I feel right now that we're dealing with mostly. Wouldn't you, Landon?
Yeah, I think so. I would agree with that.
Okay. So, and I can tell you that type of person, I'm that type of person, and I know my budget. I can tell you normally that's going to be somewhere around anywhere from 55 to $6,500 a month. Okay. So this is a good number. If you had, I had 4 kids, and this is a budget I ran on top of my mortgage, monthly. So let's see what this result created. It would be paid off in 5.7 years. So in this scenario, keep in mind they had 5 years on this loan already. That's why there's only 25 years left. This is the exact reason that my buddy came to me. He said, Glenn, I got a really low rate at 2.75, but I got to still keep paying for 25 more years. In this scenario, let's just round that off to 6, right? That saves 19 years of payments. Now, I can tell you, just like my buddy who came to me with this instance, in this particular scenario right here, because their income was fairly good, it's decent, it's good, right? It's not great, but it's good. And it could be self-employed income, that could be 2 income, 1099 income. Any one of those can create this. All right. Now, in this scenario, look how much interest, total interest, because it paid off so fast. They only had $54,000 of interest versus a 2.75 over the life of the loan that's still remaining 25 years. That's 105,000. So how much did it save them? 51,000. Is that a ton? Well, let me share this. I'm going to actually go and change this. I'm going to change this to 4.
That $51,000 is like hitting the lottery.
Right? Oh my gosh. In that scenario, that's crazy good, but I want to even make it worse. Okay.
Worse meaning good,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
could show different illustrations on a higher
Yeah.
probably amount to finance.
Yeah. Well, what I'm showing is, hey, they don't have as much money to play with, right? That might have been too much because that's only 8,000 for a couple both working. That's probably that's not even that bad. Guess what? In this scenario, that costs. It's actually, did they have any savings? They don't. Look at this. This one's costing them $8,000 more. You see that? Versus over here. Do you see what's going on here? This is what my buddies came out like this, and I'm like, what? His was actually 13 years or 12 years there. So it saved him 13 years. This is pretty close to that scenario. And when I first looked at this, because his rate was so low, I'm like, this isn't going to work. You know why? Because this one's costing you $113,000 to do this loan. And my buddy was the one who actually made the comment, the really smart comment that I didn't catch right off the bat. And he goes, yeah, but Glenn, guess what? It saved me 13 years of paying. I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, you're right. In this scenario, if you look at this one's costing more because the rate's higher than his 2.75, but it's paid off in 11.3 years, which means you have almost 14 years of no payments.
And just for the audience, the average appreciation in the nation is right around 4 to 5%. That's typically average, right? I mean, that's whether East Coast, Midwest, West Coast. Let's just say conservative, 4%. Your buddy just gained what? He gained 23 years, 24 years
Insane.
of 4% appreciation based off of your total principal. Man, that's a lot of free money.
It's almost stupid, right? It's just crazy. This is so unbelievable. Now, this is where it gets exciting. Okay. I'm going to take you into the wealth tab because this is where I really then told my friend, I said, okay, I didn't think this was going to work because it's going to cost you more money. But his comment of this saved me 12 years. Notice this is paid off in 136 months versus 300 over here, right? Okay. That means the difference is 137 months. That's what this is showing you. Okay? That means there's 300 payments left still remaining. And this is what his payment was. So imagine this house is now paid off. Okay? And there's still 300 payments left on the other one at 1,268. So that's where this comes in. Now, like what Martin just said, and he said 4.5%. What if the house only went up 3%? Okay. And that 1,268 that you're not making payments on now for 300 months made you a return of 5%. Do you think you could find a product out there that guaranteed you 5% with any financial advisor? Most are going to tell you over a time frame like 300 months, you're going to average 8%. But just to be conservative, we're going to crank this sucker way down. Okay? Way down. And that means 5%. And you can change this. This is where you get to go in. You can change that to 6%. You can change it to 4%, whatever. But let's just say 5. That's very, very conservative. Now, what did that just do? First off, like Martin talked about, how much did your value of your house go at 3%? It's not worth 500 anymore over this time frame. It's now $1,046,000. That's your home. Now, it's sitting there with all this equity in it, right? Ton of equity in it. And how much did this 1268 at 5% make over this 300 months up here? It made you right here $297,000. When my buddy saw that, he's like, okay, it's time to get me out of this 2.75% rate. And that's exactly what he did.
That is a great story. That's awesome.
Now you see the numbers. The numbers don't lie.
The math doesn't lie. No, it doesn't. $297,000 for those who, for an individual who gave up a 2.75% interest rate. Man, oh man, is that powerful. I wish everybody could listen to that or just watch that illustration, because that's real math. That's 70% of the people in Maricopa County in our market. It just is.
So with that, let's say I want to go buy a second home or an investment property. Looking at those figures there, I can take that and go buy an investment property. Do I have to get a new loan, or am I using the same loan?
You just gave me goosebumps. Because I've had this scenario in that podcast we did. I had this exact scenario. And to be honest, like we've talked before in the other podcast, should everybody own property? Not just your own house. What if you could own an investment property and you never thought you had the possibility or capability to do it? Guess what? This loan just changed your life. It literally did. And why? Landon, you just hit it on the head so well. Okay, let's go now. We're going to go back in now and we're going to imagine. So you guys are going to have to help me here because you're the experts on this side. So let's just say we took out now a loan, or not a loan, because that we're using this house money as the loan. So now they're going to go out and they're going to buy a rental property. What can you buy a rental property for? Let's go and set that up. So now everything's the same, but now you own a rental property as well. So you paid off your house. Could you buy a rental property, a nice one, for $500,000?
All day long. You probably should look at, well, no, you could 1,000%, but to get decent cash flow, you probably need to be around 400,000.
$1,000 for cash flow. Okay. Now keep in mind, you don't owe anything anymore, right? You don't have a house payment anymore. But let's just say you found a rental property, and we're talking like a $300,000 or $400,000, right? Okay. Now, actually, keep in mind, I'm sorry, that won't change. Now this thing is worth $1 million. Your house is now worth $1 million. Okay. But what we're doing is we're taking out a loan against that same property, against your house, your primary residence, and you're writing a check out of it for $400,000. So you just bought an investment house for $400,000. Are you guys following this?
So you
So
took the money out of the primary to buy a secondary, but you're borrowing it from the primary for $400,000.
yeah, but we're also fast forwarding 11 point something years, right? 11.3 years. Let's just say that house also went up and now it's 525. Would that be fair to say? 11 years from now? Okay. And rent, everything's gone up. Rent's gone up, everything's gone up. Correct? So
And
now, do you have an interest rate you're comparing it to? We really don't, but let's just say at the time rates have stabilized and we're at 5% market 11 years from now, which is 5 to 6 would be a normal market in our what we've known for the last 30 years. Would you agree? Okay. All right. So now we're going to move forward. Let me see. This now would be 0. So in other words, here's what we're comparing. If you went out and you got another loan, a regular loan, conventional loan, Fannie or Freddie Mac loan, okay, things haven't changed. You're still, let's just say you got a raise in that time frame, and now you're making $5,000 a month every 2 weeks, you and your spouse. But rents, what would a normal rent be today, Martin, on that 400,000?
rent today in that 400,000 is anywhere from $2,000 to $2,400.
Okay, now fast forward 11 years from now. What do you think the rent would be?
I mean, consumer price index goes up what, 1.92% a year? Is that
Could
I'm
we
just
say $3,000 just to be safe?
that's
Low.
extremely conservative. Yes.
Okay, so let's use low. Let's use low. Okay, guess what we just did? Your income didn't change. You don't have a mortgage payment, right? But what we just did is we added $3,000 in income. That's 1384. We're going to add 1384 to this number. So that's 6384. That's a biweekly number for 36,000. That's 3,000 a month. Okay. What we just did, guys, is that rent actually is now income coming into your cash flow, right? So it's going to accelerate this loan even faster. So what's happening? Nothing else is changing. You still have on your house, you have still property taxes, but this number went up. So that's going to flow into our leftover scenario. That's pretty close to where we had it. So now let's see. Now you're going to pay off that rental property in 7.3 years. So you had a first loan that paid off in 11.3. Now you have another 11.3 plus 7.3. So you're at 18.6 years and you own 2 houses free and clear. Free and clear.
That's
Right?
the American dream right there. So going back to this salt of the earth conservative individual, if they were listening today and they're debt free, right? That's what our Ramsey viewers would listen to is get debt free, and they've got equity in a house of $600,000, but they want to get into some appreciation on the rental market. They may have kids going to school or whatever the case may be. They just want some supplemental income. You would suggest to that person, it sounds like to me, that you would ask them to borrow on their primary, pay off the primary of the rate, take that money and go buy investment property.
That's a whole nother scenario. We can do that. Okay. But let me wrap this one up real quick and then we'll do that scenario. So keep in mind on the original one that we started, it was a 2.75% rate you got rid of. Then you had 100% equity and you took 25,000 out and you bought a rental property. Now it accelerated even faster. So now 18 years has gone by. You've got now 7,106 right here, available money, okay, expendable to invest at 5%. By getting rid of your 2.75 over 18 years and you had 25 years left, it still saved you 7 years and you're now a millionaire. You made $1.4 million plus your house. Okay. You own 2 properties now. Okay, this is crazy. Okay, now we're going to switch and we're going to set it up for the person who has a house already paid off and they're going to buy an investment home. So we're going to say you have a house paid off right now and you're going, should we buy an investment property as part of our portfolio? I would say yes. So let's change this to a purchase and an investment property. Okay. And Martin, in today's market, you said a cash flow house would normally be around 400 grand, correct?
Yep, that's a max.
Okay.
That is correct. That is max on what I'm seeing right now in the West Valley. For those, I mean, obviously, the lower you go, the more cash flow you're going to get. But in our area, that would be a cap.
Normally, someone will come to me and they go, okay, what's the minimum down I can do? And I'll say, well, you can do 20% down on an investment product. But in reality, there's just too much cost. So if you were doing 20% down, that's a loan amount would be 320 because it's 80,000 is 20% of 400. But you're going to pay over 3 points, like 3.25 to 3.5 points. That's expensive. On this loan, it's a half a point. So there's hardly any cost. Okay. Now on a normal conventional loan, I can tell you, I talk everybody into doing at least 25%, if not 30% down. Why? Because the points drops drastically. At 25%, it drops to like 2 1/8. At 30% down, it drops to 1.625% in points. That's a big difference versus 3.25 to 3.5, right? But in this, it's only half a point. Now, let's compare it to a rate today because all those points are going to jack up the rate. So we're looking at probably this amount. This is where Landon was going. Wouldn't the rate be higher? That's what he was saying. Absolutely, it would be higher versus a normal conventional loan at like 6.5% with no points. Okay, you're going to pay points and still get a higher rate on a conventional. Okay, so that's what we have to compare it to.
Can I ask a quick question on that? What is your minimum amount to finance, right? So I got $200,000 of equity. You had just told our audience what you would suggest is at least 30% down, right? So I got a house free and clear. I'm going to give you, we're going to do a 70-30 ATV. Would you guys finance actually 140 grand? Is there like an absolute minimum? And the reason why I'm asking is because a lot of the conventional mortgages out there, if you do a minimum amount of finance, they make you do a lower term. So that's why I didn't mean to throw you off track, but that was just a question that popped off the top of my head.
No, and that's a valid question because a lot of the more lenders, because keep in mind I'm a broker, right? So I don't just have one rate. We can bank our loans too, and the guidelines are identical. But when I'm out there shopping this, every lender does have a threshold, and then you're going to pay extra points on top. So once you get under 150, then it goes in 25s typically, like 125,000, you're going to pay, say, an extra half a point. Because the amount of work for me, it doesn't matter if it's $1 million loan or a $100,000 loan. The work is the same. I still got to collect W-2s and all the other bank statements, you name it. Nothing changes. Same with the lender. They're underwriters. Everything is based on percentage. We get paid on the percentage of the loan. So the lower the loan amount, the less we make. So our hourly rate goes down quite a lot. So that lender knows that and they're going to charge you. So when you get down to 100, I've done loans, it's been years, at 75,000. But in my scenario anymore, just because of cost, I really don't want to do a loan below 150. And if someone came to me, Martin, and they said, hey, I got 200 grand, you know what I would tell, and they don't have a house payment, I would say, buy 2 rental properties. Buy one with 100,000, like in this scenario, there's 400,000 right there, right? And 100,000, that's 25% down. Okay, is 300,000 alone. You could have 2 of those renting, making you money. So let's look at that. Let's take some of this out. Actually, they're going to get rent. which will offset the payment because the rent is going to offset that mortgage payment. Okay. In reality, guys, I'm talking to you people listening. If you had $5,000 a month or $5,000 every biweekly, you and your spouse, and then you have rent, it's not going to change. I'm going to drop it a little because we had put in for 3,000, assuming it was more, right? So let me change that down. 2,000. What would rent be? Like 20? You said 2,400 a month, right?
That's correct. Out of a $400,000 house, you're looking at about $2,400.
Okay, so divided by 26 weeks, that's 1104. So this is going to change to 6107 biweekly. Okay, so that's the 5,000 plus another $1,107 biweekly. So if you're wondering how I calculated that, I took the 2,400, I multiplied that times 12 months. That gave me a number. Then I divide by 26 weeks, not 24, because 24 would be twice a month. 26 is biweekly. That gave me 1,105,000. That's where this number came from. Does that make sense? If you didn't catch that, rewind and listen to it again on the podcast. Okay? So nothing has changed in this scenario here. Now we're going to move forward and we are going to get their budget down to where I believe it is going to be normal for this type of person. Taxes, 350, I still would, it's probably going to be in that range. It might be a little lower, but let's calculate this payoff. It's going to be fast. You did that. Your house is, that 300 grand is paid off in 3.7 years. Guess what, folks? Versus a 30-year fixed, look at the amount of interest you saved. Almost 400 grand in interest in this short period of time versus that.
The price of another rental home.
So guess what you're going to do? You do this loan. This loan now is paid off again in 3.7 years. You go buy another one in 3.7 years. Now, guess what? That changes this. We take another 1,107. We're going to switch this now to 7214. Why? Because I just added another 1107 to it. Okay. Now this is rental 2 coming up. Get the budget down to where it was before. Your second home now will be paid off in 2.7 years. So at 3.7 and 2.7, what is that? That's 6.4 years. You have 2 rental homes paid off. Guess what? Go do it a third time. It'll keep dropping this number. In under 10 years, guys, you're going to own 3 rental properties free and clear. You just set yourself up for retirement.
Yeah, that is a game changer. That's what you said in podcast number 1, the life changer, the game changer. Indeed. Good job.
Yeah, this literally is game changing, right? It changes your life. It changes your inheritance to your kids because when you pass, guess what? They're going to get these properties or they can sell them and go do what they want. But bottom line is, if you really understand numbers, we need all to get away from amortized loans. This will change your life. Okay. Now, is it for everybody? We've said this many times. It's not for everybody because you can't be living paycheck to paycheck. If you are not someone who is not following Dave Ramsey, you should be. Okay. So you need to have a budget. You need to live by that budget and you need to tighten your budget. All of us spend way too much money on eating out, fast food, right? Things that aren't good for us anyways. But if we were to eat from home a lot more, I guarantee your budget. That's the first thing I tell people. If your budget's not good, how many times do you eat out? Probably too many times. Eat at home a little more and your budget gets narrower. Guess what you're doing with that extra money? Putting it into this, driving it down. Now, keep in mind, now you own 2 or 3 years. You would own 3 properties. Okay, let's go back to here. Guys, this is getting crazy. See that 89.23? That's actually how much now you would have to invest over the period of 306. Yeah, so many months have gone off. guys, the results on this, you're now a multi-millionaire from using this loan. You just turned very little money into a lot of money. Okay.
Landon, how come you're not doing this?
Great question.
You're at that age. You're at that age where you could do this. So what Glenn just showed you on the simulator, in 10 years, you've got 3 homes. By the time you're my age, you'll have 9 homes.
It's surreal even looking at it when you see the numbers. It's a lot to track, but it definitely makes sense with the numbers you put in there. And I like that we've done this part too, so we can actually see the numbers, because we talked about this in the first episode, and getting these numbers ran. But now that we're doing the math, and it's insane.
Let me go back to something. I want to show you how this loan really works, and because people get stuck on rate. The number one question I get right off the bat all the time, okay, well, what's the rate? Right? That's a typical scenario for someone who is stuck in 30-year and 15-year amortized loans. I love showing this screen, okay? Why? Because I want people to see that rates don't matter. Now, how does this work? This is an adjustable type product. Now, if you were to ask me, and most people would go, Glenn, I don't ever want to do an adjustable loan. I just don't. That doesn't make sense to me. Why would I do an adjustable loan that I can get a rate that's fixed and I don't have to worry about it? Really? Well, I just showed you a lot of reasons why. Okay. Now, we're in a marketplace right now where things are dropping drastically. Right? We literally are at the point now where rates are slowly coming down with the Fed. And I'm going to show you another graph here in a bit, but this is called a fully indexed rate. And I want you to go in and play with this. That's why I'm showing you this. This is just another segment on the tabs that I want you to play with. So in this section, you could actually buy the rate down all the way to 2.5% right here on the margin. Now, there's 2 things that go into it. It's called a fully indexed rate. There's the index, which right here, see we're at the top right, you see 679, you add 2.5 to that. The fully indexed rate, which is the real rate, is 6.179. Okay, that sounds good, right? Now, if we were to change it to that, notice it was 2.7. It only went to 2.6. Didn't change much. Nothing. 0.1 years. Okay, so is the interest rate matter? Go back to the rate and assumption. Nope. Let's make it terrible. Let's jack this thing back up to 7.69 up here on the initial rate. It's the margin plus the index. So I tell people, unless we need it to qualify, just because your numbers are tight, that's the only time we buy it down. I would rather you look at this thing. So let's look at it from this standpoint. Let's just say the rates never changed. The rates never came down over 30 years. That's what this is assuming. So this simulator only assumes what's put into it. Okay? So it's assuming that it never went down. Well, I know the market will come down more, but let's change that. Let's make that the worst it could be. And what is that worst? Take this 7.69, we take the worst case scenario and we max it out 6% above. See this max cap rate right here in the middle? It's at 13.679 years. Let's see how many years that changed the results. Oh my goodness, it didn't change it at all. Okay, why? I'm going to change this because right now we have so much income in this thing because it was generating so much with this investment. So let's change how much deposit. Let's go back down to 5,000. Just so we can make this a little more realistic. Okay. Everything looks good. Let's jack that back up.
I'm going to guess 6.9 years. I'm playing the lottery.
No, it's going to go to 11 like we were originally.
Okay.
I was wrong. You were right. Look at you.
Winner. Martin hit the nail on the head with that one.
Okay. Well, here's what's amazing. Watch this, guys. Now this is going to get a little more realistic. Okay. I have it at max rate. Nothing's changed. In other words, the rate went up over, this is the max it can go. And it finally at year 5, it's capped out for the whole time for 30 years. Is that realistic, guys? It's not, is it?
Let's hope we don't get to 13%. It won't be a good day for us.
Okay. Well, guess what? Let's see what that does in the results. Almost didn't change. Why does rate not matter in this thing? Because that's not the mechanics behind it. It's your budget. It's the amount of income that's residual after your budget. That's how this loan works, guys. So if you have good to great income, this loan is going to smoke anything out there. And when I get the question of what are rates, it doesn't matter. I just proved it. Okay. So now let's take it to historical. We saw 7.2. Now let's take it to historical averages. 6.2 from 7. What was it? 7.3. So it dropped it almost a
7.2.
year.
Yep,
7.2.
7.1.
Okay.
7.1 or 2, yes. So
Yeah.
a year.
Took a year off. Guys, once again, it's just not doing much. So here's those rates.
It's almost like it's a funnel, right? You try to put as much as you can into the funnel every single month to knock out that principal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, seriously, right? What do we want to do here? Okay. I could show you so many different scenarios on here, but it really, I'm proving it over and over.
It comes down to your lifestyle. Well, let's just be honest. I mean, people, if they've got a frugal lifestyle and they buckle down and they focus on something like this, they can reap the benefits when they retire and when they get older. Don't live above your means. Don't keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, and just focus on building wealth. This is awesome. Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah. So there's still some other things to play with, guys. Like as an example, you really want to look at this. You know why? Because it shows real numbers. So if at 12 months right here, you see, here's 2 years. So 12 months have gone by. If you stay in your normal loan, you only paid $3,155. Guys, I don't know about you. When I get my statement every month, it's depressing. Right? Wouldn't you guys all say it's depressing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt.
So look at the comparison. On the left side, with the loan we're talking about $82,000 in principal versus $3,000. Go to year 4. You've paid off $9,670 here if you stay in a 30-year loan, or you could have $158. Why would anybody do this? Why would anyone do a 30-year loan? It just makes no sense to me.
That's what they've been taught. That's what they teach us in financial institutions, in your accounting classes, in your education is no baloney, 30-year mortgage. That's the old farmers type of outlook, is just the no baloney mortgage.
The no baloney mortgage. That's classic.
Well, Glenn, I think this is definitely why we do a part 2, and I know we could run through these simulators and probably numbers, for hours, and probably could do a part 3, part 4 maybe of this loan program. But seeing the numbers makes this totally click in a different way for me, and I'm sure for our listeners as well. If someone watching this wants to plug in their numbers and contact you to have you do that with them, how can they reach you?
Yeah, I would say, number one, take my cell number. That's 602-469-94. I would say text me first. I mean, honestly, I'm on the phone all the time. If you don't catch me, leave a message. I'll get back to you really quickly, as fast as I can. That's the best way. Secondly, you could try emailing me, but as both Martin and Landon have found out, sometimes we have a very secure email system because of the type of job I have, but you could try emailing me as well. A lot of times that doesn't go through until it starts to recognize who you are. And that email is Glenn, GLE with 2 N's. So GLENN at barrettfinancial.com, and Barrett's B as in boy, ARRET as in Tom, T as in Tom. So barrettfinancial.com. So hopefully I've answered every question. And if you have more, I'd love to speak to you.
Fantastic. Good job. No, I'm always inclined and intrigued by when I talk to you about just this simulator. I mean, you could play with this thing all day long. You could cook up where you could pull some money or sell a used car, sell something around the house, get on Facebook and start selling some stuff around the house so you can throw towards some equity and buy a house off or pay a house off. I mean, it's fascinating. So thanks again, Glenn, for your time today. We appreciate it.
Martin, Landon, always a pleasure with you too. You guys are a pleasure to know. I appreciate you guys very much.
Thank you. We appreciate you, Glenn. If this sparked questions for you watching, reach out to Glenn. You do not have to stay on the 30-year treadmill if you understand how money actually flows. We appreciate you listening. If this made you think differently about your mortgage, subscribe, follow along, and send it to someone who should hear it. Real conversations, real people, real value. We'll see you next time on Beyond the Sign.